All right, good morning, directors. So I'd like just to begin by acknowledging that we're gathering today on the unceded traditional territories of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. And our first item of business is a report just concerning the co-chair structure of this board. And I believe if I can get a motion for receipt, please.
So moved. Receipt.
Okay. Moved Wells, second Arbor, and I'll pass this over, I believe, to CAO Dyson.
Thank you very much, Chair Cole Hamilton. I'll just ask James Warren to present this part of the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Good morning, directors. And this staff report is presented right at the beginning of the agenda to be able to introduce the concept of co-chairs for Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board meetings. Through the orientation and through the rest of this meeting, we will talk about some of the history of the solid waste service and the governance process and the role of the regional district board and how it expands its membership for the purpose of solid waste topics. But the report here simply introduces the notion of co-chairs where because the Strathcona and Comox Valley regional districts come together for the purposes of solid waste, in the past it's been felt appropriate to have the chairs of both regional districts share the presiding member duties at board meetings. And so this first meeting, Director Cole Hamilton, who is the vice chair of the Comox Valley Regional District, would be presiding over the meeting. And with this resolution, we would look to Chair Baker from the Strathcona Regional District to preside over the next meeting, and then we'll have alternating presiding roles in meetings coming forward. So as I say, we'll have more description and dialogue around the orientation and the history of the solid waste service. But for the purposes of this report, the recommendation is that the two chairs share the role of presiding member over the course of 2023.
Thanks, James. And someone want to move the recommendation?
Second.
Oh, sorry. Actually, sorry. We need a vote on receipt first. So all those in favor?
Move the recommendation. Second.
Thank you. So moved by Wells and seconded by McCollum. And all those, sorry, any opposed?
Discussion on it.
I'm sorry. Any discussion at all on the co-chairs first? It's my first meeting chairing. Okay. And any opposed? Okay, seeing none. We were going to do just a really quick, and I know it's hard with the room full of politicians, round of introductions, just as there's a lot of new members here, and it'd be nice to get a brief sense of who everyone is. And I'll start with the folks who are on Zoom. And at the top of the list, I have my co-chair, Mayor Baker, chair of the SRD. Do you want to take just a second just to sort of introduce yourself?
Thank you. Again, my name is Mark Baker. I'm the mayor of Sayward. Recently been elected as chair of the Strathcona Regional District, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you. Great.
Thanks very much, Chair. And next is Director Sinnott.
Oh, yes, it's Susan Sinnott. It's hard to, I know, it's a hard name to pronounce. Well, thank you. Yes, I was recently elected as city councillor in the city of Campbell River and appointed by the mayor to the SRD board. I grew up in Campbell River. I'm a local lawyer and really look forward to working with you guys.
Great, thanks very much, Susan. And next, I believe, is Director O'Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm the electoral area representative for Cayucot, Nuka, and Sayward. I've been on the board for 14 years, I guess, so far. And I live in Sayward. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. And Director Vinesh.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Vinesh. I'm the regional director for Cortez Island and my first board meeting with you all. Looking forward to it.
Great, thanks very much. And Director Kerr.
Hi there, I'm Director Kerr from Campbell River, and for some reason my camera is not working. I'm working on that. Anyways, this is my fourth term on the board and looking forward very much to this term. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. And I can't quite see the full list of participants, but who else do we have online who's not had a chance to? Director Polson.
That unmute button gets me every time. Hi, I'm Sue Polson. I am a councillor in Sayward, and I was elected first in a by-election 2 years ago and just re-elected. So I've lived in Sayward for about 7 years, and I'm happy to be here as the alternate director for Sayward.
Great, thanks very much. And I think that's everyone we have online. So maybe I'll just start in the room, and I'll start on this end of the horseshoe with Director Mowini.
Hello, thank you. I am Robin Mowini. I am the Regional Director for Electoral Area C, also known as Discovery Islands and the Mainland Inlets. And I have been a resident of Quadra Island for 28 years, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks, Chair. Councillor Sullivan from Cumberland. This is my 3rd term and my 4th year on the board as an alternate director.
I'm Rod Nickel. I'm live in Area B. Lived there since 2000. Since 2000. I'm Richard's Hardy alternate director, and worked with him during the campaign, and very, very happy to be here to represent him.
Good morning. My name is John Rice. I represent Strathcona Regional Area D. This is my first time here, so happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Edwin Grieve, and I represent Puntage Black Creek in the Comox Valley Regional District. This is my 5th term, and I was born and bred in the Comox Valley, so I'm older than dirt.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Warren. I'm on Courtenay City Council in my 2nd term and my 2nd time on the RD board. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melanie McCollum. I'm also a city councillor from Courtenay. This is my 2nd term, and I joined this board halfway through the last term, so this will be my 3rd year serving here. Nice to meet you all.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan Kerr. I'm a family doctor in Comox and was recently re-elected to Comox Council. And I hope having 2 Kerrs on this board won't cause too much of an issue.
Nice, very good. Bob Wells, Mayor of the City of Courtenay. I was at the on this board for I think 5 years, and my final year I was actually chair, and then started the co-chair with the SRD. Yeah, and just looking forward to all sorts of things like organics and solid waste stuff. Love it.
Thank you. I'm Daniel Arbor. I'm the rep for Area A at the Regional District, Comox Valley Regional District. So that includes Royston, Union Bay, Fanny Bay, Hornby, and Denman Islands. It's great to be back on this board. And it's interesting, last term when I started, there was a range. Most of us in the Comox Valley were new to the board, and the SRD board had been there for a long time. And it seems like just with this election, we see a lot of new faces in the north, and very much looking forward to work with all of you.
I'm Ken Grant from town of Comox. Been a councillor for 6 terms now, and this is my first ever solid waste meeting. Wow. I've successfully avoided it all that time.
Great, thanks, directors. And I think that one of the Lisa Gentry, one of the staff from Strathcona Regional District, has her hand up. So please go ahead, Lisa. Lisa, did you have a question, or do you want to maybe perhaps put your hand down if not? All right, well, feel free to put your hand up again if there's a further question, but we'll just move on with the agenda. So the first item is approval of the agenda. Moved by Arbor, seconded by McCollum. Any opposed? Oh, sorry. Any discussion? Director Grieve? Oh, sorry. Sorry, you're live.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the chair to staff. I take it at the Comox Valley Regional District, we don't have this agenda item to approve the agenda. So is it a different procedural bylaw for the solid waste? Is that why we're doing this?
Thank you, Director. So I believe it was in 2019 or perhaps 2020, there was a roundtable with the Solid Waste Board, and there were some improvements and governance changes that were proposed and implemented. One of them is the co-chairing, another one is this approval of the agenda. So it enables a more inclusive opportunity by the board to consider and approve the agenda at the outset. So there is some unique differences for the Solid Waste Board.
And I see that Mayor Wells, you have your light on. Something you wanted to say then? I'll just.
It's actually just a technical point of order. On the Zoom list there, the reason the hand might have been up is they're attendees, not panelists. So they may want to get elevated to become panelists.
Thank you. And I think that has been done. And I'm just informed by staff that L Gentry is actually 3 different people, amazingly enough. It's directors Dahl, Lanyon, and Chapman. So could I ask you 3 perhaps just to take a second to alternate the microphone and just introduce yourselves?
Hi, Doug Chapman here in Campbell River. Joining me is Mayor Dahl, Director Dahl, and Ben Lanyon. We're joining on Zoom from our committee room here in City Hall.
Great, thanks. Excellent to have you all here. So next will be adoption of minutes. Moved by Arbor, seconded by Wells. Any opposed? Okay, and at this point we'll move to reports. So the first report is Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service History and Overview, and I get a motion for receipt. You guys are busy, Arbor and Wells. Any opposed? Didn't expect there would be, and with that I'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. And Chair Cole Hamilton, just to confirm that you can hear my my audio okay. Great, thank you so much. And I'll get Lisa to call up a PowerPoint presentation we have to support this this presentation for you. In the meantime, just a little bit about myself. Russell Dyson, I'm the CAO of the Comox Valley Regional District, and as such, your CAO for the Solid Waste Service. I've been with the Regional District for 5.5 years now, and I am part of the Dyson clan that resided in Sayward, not part of the vacuum empire. But thank you to the vacuum. It's made people understand the spelling of our name a little easier, and I don't have to spell it every time I introduce myself. But today we welcome you all, either those that are returning or that are new to the service, to the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service. And with the assistance of staff, we're putting together a little bit of an orientation to talk to you about this service, the administration, finance, and operations. And this is just a beginning. And I would like to point to the written report on the agenda. We've written it really as a resource for you, something that you can keep in your back pocket and refer to throughout your term to understand and answer questions about the service. The other thing I wish to confirm with you is that through the financial planning process, we'll also really delve into matters related to the service and of course your interest in the finances of the service and the costs associated with it. So consider today as the start of a journey to thoroughly understand the service and provide you with what you need to set the policy and guide us in terms of the operations of solid waste, recycling, and the other programs that we provide. We also have for you a facility tour that will focus on the Comox Valley in mid-March. And we are planning a roundtable where we will delve into specifics of the service that address your interests. We want to host that in Campbell River and then do a tour of our facilities in Campbell River at that time. So consider this as your introduction. Next slide, please, Lisa. So as I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit about the background, this unique service and the collaboration between two regions. I'll be supported by staff. Vivian Shaw, the Senior Manager of Solid Waste, will go through some of the regulatory and strategic framework of the service. She'll be supported by one of our managers of finance, Kevin Duval, who will talk about finances, and James Warren will assist in terms of talking a little bit about procedures, voting, and such for the service. And Vivian will also introduce to you some of the key members of staff that help support the service. We have two types of staff. We have staff that are dedicated to the service, that their sole responsibilities and duties are for the service. And we have other staff that are shared with other services that the Comox Valley Regional District provides to ensure we get the most out of the staff, but we allocate the costs or their contributions appropriately to the various services. Next slide, please, Lisa. So most of you are familiar with regional districts, but just a little bit of perspective. Regional districts were established in the 1960s, and we were established initially as the Comox Strathcona Regional District. And we provided services to the rural areas, the electoral areas, street lighting, small water systems, and other things that are necessary for electoral area services. And then we provided the collaboration with municipalities within our service area for the bigger services, whether it's water or sewer, and of course, solid waste. But regional districts also have another opportunity, and that's something that this board represents. And that is two regions or more working collaboratively to provide services across multiple jurisdictions of regional district. And then the fourth purpose of regional districts, and this board has been very good at this, is lobbying senior levels of government to address the concerns of the region. And I think of various initiatives that this board took to meet with the Minister of Environment to pursue the interests of the Solid Waste Management Board to ensure that you had the authority to do what was necessary and also had the resources, and any policy that was going to be impacting our service reflected the interests of the broader region. So for purposes of a regional district, but the red area is really what this association represents. Strathcona Regional District and Comox Valley, two separate regional districts coming together. And how is it that I explained to you we were one and now we are two together as one for solid waste? Well, approximately 12 years ago or so, in a unilateral move of the province, it was decided that the Comox Strathcona Regional District would split into two separate regional districts. But the province determined that solid waste would continue to be managed as one. The hospital district would continue to function as one. And then we have some smaller services, water services and fire, that are provided across our boundaries in the Oyster River area. So this is unique. And the way the province established this two regional districts working as one, is that the Comox Valley Regional District would continue to provide the administration, the support of the staff for operations and such. But for the purposes of setting policy, financial plans, or otherwise, the Comox Valley Regional District Board would expand to the board that incorporates both Strathcona and the Comox Valley together as one. Over these years and part of the separation, there's no question it's been a little awkward at times. And there's no question there's differences in terms of the way things are done across the two boundaries. But I really commend the board in the last term, under the leadership of the two chairs, Michelle Babchuk for Strathcona Regional District and Bob Wells for Comox Valley Regional District, and the board of directors coming together to agree on certain procedures that could allow you to work better as a team. And we've alluded to some of that today already. The co-chairs, the sharing of chairs. Not only is it at the meetings, but the two chairs come together to advise staff on the formation of agendas, how matters are presented to you. And we have that culture and the differences in terms of how procedures might happen in the two regional districts come together for the benefit of good decision-making for you. We also alluded to the question with respect to the setting of the agenda by the board, not a procedure of the Comox Valley Regional District, but something that is adopted here so that you, the members, at the beginning of a meeting can set out and confirm the agenda. And then there was another matter too. Policy for the board was set by the Comox Valley Regional District, but it was realized before setting policy that might impact or affect this service, it's better that that policy come forward to you as the board for your input before the Comox Valley Regional District adopts it. So for instance, policy in terms of, let's say, procedures for staff, expense claims, or otherwise, things that are traditional policy, rather than the Comox Valley Regional District setting that and establishing it in isolation as was done in the past, those policies come forward to the board for your, so it can be reflective of the interests of the service. So those are 3 examples of some changes that took place in this last term that I hope better reflect decision-making and policy establishment by this board. I'll go on to the next slide. So the bringing together of these 2 regional districts brings a vast geography of the northern part of Vancouver Island and the lower coast of the mainland. Strathcona Regional District is a large area with rural and remote communities, but we also have metropolitan areas, Campbell River, the 3 municipalities, Comox, Cumberland, and Courtenay in close proximity, as well as the vast electoral areas. So we are very unique. And sometimes it's difficult to compare ourselves to other regional districts when you look at the regional district of Nanaimo, Alberni, Clayoquot, Capital, Cowichan, which tend to be very compact areas. And this is especially important in managing solid waste. We have a vast region to bring together and deliver services, very different needs in terms of our rural communities and our more metropolitan. And so the service does its best policy and through the direction staff to help support those smaller communities in their needs, as well as those urban areas. In this last term, in order to provide a service that is cost effective, meets our regulatory requirements, and delivers the needs of the community and protects the environment, some major decisions have been made and a lot of capital investment has been undertaken. Today, we'll present you the status of some of those capital plans that are being implemented now. And we look forward to you touring our facilities and just seeing the level to which we have come and the quality of service that we provide that protects the environment, but manages solid waste in an appropriate manner. Vivian will also talk today about the solid waste management plan, a very important document in terms of helping you set policy, in terms of you reaching out to the community, and ultimately, once adopted, setting the stage for our approvals where we need to undertake borrowing and where we need to seek approvals for the works that we do. So a very important document that we look forward to talking to you about and undertaking a review over this year. Next slide, please. With that, I'd like to pass it on to Vivian Shaw, our Senior Manager of Solid Waste. I just want to reiterate that I'm available here to support you, the board. Please, as in serving your term, when you have questions about the issues and matters and the things that we've done, provide those to me. When we set the agendas, if there's a need for more information, let us know. We'll come prepared to our meetings. And ultimately, what's very important, I want you to know, especially those Strathcona Regional
I'm sorry, he's frozen up.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
That you are informed. And I just want to assure you that all decisions and discussions take place at the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board, not the Comox Valley Regional District Board, when it comes to solid waste matters.
CAO, you cut out for about 20 seconds there. If you could just back up a couple of sentences, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Part of being in a rural community today. Just I want to assure board members that we're there to serve you all. And as the administrator, I respect that the information that I provide to one director must be provided to all, and conversations in the establishment of policy are debated at this board table, not at the Comox Valley Regional District table. Thank you very much, and I'll pass it on to Vivian Shaw, Senior Manager of Solid Waste.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Russell, and good morning to the board.
I recognize that this is a very busy slide with a lot of information, but I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to provide a quick overview of just to illustrate the breadth of the services and activities that we provide under the CSWM banner across a very vast service area. As you can see on the slide, the first bullet point, it just illustrates the number of facilities that we own and operate or contract the operation of the services for. So we operate the regional landfill in Cumberland, the a regional organics facility in Campbell River, which is coming online in 2023, as well as 3 historical landfills in Sabalas, Tassus, Gold River, 2 waste management centers in the Comox Valley in Campbell River, and 2 recycling depots that the CSWM operates on Quadra Island and Oyster River, as well as 6 transfer stations on Hornby and Cortez Island, the villages of Gold River, Tassus, Sabalas, and Sayward. It is illustrated in that little graphic. I realize it's really hard to see, but it's a very vast geographically a service area that we cover, and all of the CSWM facilities here have access to either a full suite of EPR product stewardship programs, either on a permanent basis or as part of a cleanup. And furthermore, the CSWM service provides responsibility for the operation, maintenance, and annual compliance for all of our landfills, both the active and the historical landfills, as well as the unified transportation for all communities with transportation, as well as the closure cost liabilities for all of the historical landfills. Before I get any further in, I wanted just to introduce some of the key members of our team, which is critical to the success of running this operation. Right, for those of you that are in the room, Mark Rutten, he is the General Manager of Engineering Services. He's the captain of our engineering ship here, and he provides strategic oversight and support for wastewater and water under the CVRD service, and also strategic direction for the solid waste the solid waste service under the CSWM service. As well, we've got Jesse Lee here in the audience. He is, in the gallery here. Jesse Lee, he is the manager of our CSWM operations. He has a really big portfolio, as you can see. His role is responsible for the safe, efficient, effective, and environmentally compliant operation of the solid waste disposal and diversion operations across our entire service area, which is, as you can see, is vast geographically speaking. We don't have a number of the other team on the line, but I do want to introduce you to Stephanie Valdell. She is our CSWM service coordinator. She's responsible for the management, maintenance, upgrade, and operation contracts for all of the facilities outside of the Comox Valley Waste Management Center in Cumberland. She plays a really critical role in managing the product stewardship programs in all of our facilities, as well as managing the illegal dumping program. She also has the community cleanup portfolio, as well as the recent successful launch of the Ocean Legacy Depot in helping clean up ocean plastics. And also she's got she's been championing the food waste pilots in the rural areas of Tassus, Sabalas, Cortez, and the Homoko First Nations in Campbell River. We've also have Mike Bean. He is the superintendent of operations. So he is responsible for the management of the landfill, the regional landfill, and he leads a team of unionized staff in providing excellent customer service and site operation. He's also been very critical in the transitioning of our old historical landfill to the new engineered landfill that we have in Cumberland. He's also supported by Jennifer Ivan. She's the diversion and operations support coordinator, again, instrumental in supporting the operation and the waste reduction programs that we have here in the Valley. All of this to say, It's really to illustrate the depth of the experience that we have on our team, and also the breadth of the services and activities that we manage here within the CSWM service. And as well, our commitment to providing excellent customer service to our taxpayers. Just going back to the slide, I just wanted to again note some of the differences in what we provide and what we don't provide under the CSWM service. The curbside contracts specifically are managed by the municipalities or the regional districts for the communities noted in the slide, and then also the multifamily and IC&I components are managed by the private sector. Oh, sorry, industrial, commercial, and institutional sectors. Sorry.
It may be better. We had issues with our council meeting. It may be better to have.
Yes. Thank you so much. This is to provide a quick overview of what a solid waste management plan is. So a solid waste management plan, which is really a guide for the service, it's mandated actually by the province of British Columbia through the Environmental Management Act. It requires that all regional district develops a plan for the management of municipal solid waste and also the recycling of materials. So once this plan is approved by the Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, it authorizes the regional district to manage a solid waste service and the recyclables in accordance to that plan. And it includes any conditions that's set out in the operational certificate, any permits or any applicable bylaws. So the solid waste management plan, again, it's built on extensive public and First Nation consultation, and it provides input into all waste system programs and all the initiatives that are included in this plan. And it also serves to confirm compliance with the province's policy objectives, regulations, and standards. For us, this solid waste management plan really is a blueprint for the management of municipal solid waste and how we manage recyclables in the region. And it identifies all of the key issues regionally for the next 20 to 25 years, while planning specifically what the plan will entail for the next 10, with taking into consideration the system costs, system financing. So just a quick history, our first plan was actually completed back in 1995 with a renewal back in 2005, and most recently in 2012. Sorry, next slide. The current solid waste management plan that we're working under was last undertaken in 2012. And these were the three main key objectives identified by the previous board. I wanted just to take a moment here just to note some of the significant achievements that has been achieved, that we've undertaken under the current solid waste management plan. So number one, it's the closure of the Pigeon Lake landfill in in Cumberland, as well as the installation of a landfill gas capture system, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions by over 168,000 CO2 equivalent tons between 2016 and 2021. Second, we've constructed the first cell of the engineered landfill at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center, as well as the integrated leachate treatment facility. With the construction of the second cell almost at 50% completion, as well as the expansion of leachate pond, this will help provide greater capacity to handle the increased precipitation as a result of climate change considerations. Number three, we've also transitioned away from fully CSWM funded recycling depots with a more limited list of accepted materials towards the acceptance of more EPR, extended producer responsibility programs at depots, which includes the acceptance of things like batteries, lights, electronics, styrofoam, film plastics, and such. Number 4, there's been additional provisions included in the plan for community cleanup events and cleanup as well as the adoption of illegal dumping bylaws with stronger enforcement tools to limit the amount of waste that's deposited within our service areas. Number 5, we have done a number of recycling improvements at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center. And there's also new facilities for household hazardous waste at both of our waste management centers in Cumberland and in Campbell River as well. Number 6, and this is one that we're going to go into a bit more when we do our capital update. We are going to be expanding the food scrap diversion, which is currently underway with Town of Comox and the Village of Cumberland. This expansion of this curbside program for food waste is going to be extended to the city of Courtenay and city of Campbell River in 2023, and we're really excited about this. We're going to be the compost facility in Cumberland and in Campbell River, and the organics transfer station in Cumberland is nearing completion, and we're going to be undertaking this in the new year. And then finally, the closure of the Campbell River landfill up in Campbell River, and the integrated landfill gas collection and destruction system will be completed fairly shortly. And upon completion, anywhere between 50 to 70% reduction of GHG emissions from the landfill are anticipated upon commissioning. So all of this to say, again, the previous board has left behind a legacy of environmental protections to ensure that the CSWM board service is responsibly managing waste at all of our facilities. And looking forward, as of June 2022, this year, staff received a formal board approval to initiate the next solid waste management plan renewal process. And we've started to undertake that first stage of the renewal. Rather than contracting this work out, as most regional districts do, and we have as well in the past, we decided to take a slightly different approach this time by building on, again, the depth of experience that we have within our team. So we're going to be taking this initiative on in-house. You'll get to meet our manager of solid waste planning and the policy development very shortly. Her name is Sarah Willie, and she is going to be responsible in taking the lead in shaping the CSWM solid waste management plan through the development of this plan, in working with the community by identifying community waste disposal and diversion needs, investigating possible solutions, and working with a wide array of stakeholders in the community, as well as our First Nation partners, to provide a formal recommendation to the board in pursuit of advancing our solid waste diversion targets. Next slide. So to put this all into context, approximately 2.6 million tons of municipal solid waste is disposed of in BC annually. And while there's been an overall decreasing trend in municipal solid waste disposal since the 1990s, much of the waste that's disposed of cannot be reduced, can be reduced, repurposed, recycled, or composted. And this is particularly important as the BC population grows. Landfills across BC are approaching their capacity and for receiving new waste. So it's really imperative that we also reduce the associated greenhouse gas emissions from the waste that's being disposed. So what does this mean for the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service? According to the 2021 census, the population change from 2016 to 2021 amounted to about 8.5% growth, which is roughly about 10,000 new residents that's moved to the CSWM service area between both the SRD and the CDRD. So it's really just needs to highlight the waste reduction efforts that we need to undertake as we continue to grow. So to ensure that we're all talking the same language, I just wanted to introduce the term disposal rate, which is a term that's widely used in the solid waste industry. It's used to calculate the weight of the waste that's buried in our landfills each and divided by the population of the region. The province uses this number here to calculate and to measure the performance of a regional district. In terms of how we stack against the other regional districts in the BC, as you can see, we're kind of right in the middle of the pack. There are obvious variabilities in the disposal rates from one region to another, which is again heavily influenced by a slew of factors like population density, economic activities, tourism, transient population, fluctuations, distance to recycling markets. The list goes on, but it's understood that the disposal rate isn't necessarily a reliable piece, but it doesn't tell the whole story, but it is a good starting point for us to understand where we stand and also what we can do to start to work towards improving our waste diversion efforts. So the disposal rate shown in this graphic here accounts for waste that's coming from the residential sector, the institutional, commercial, and industrial sources, as well as the construction and demolition activities. To clarify, it doesn't include any of the recycled materials. So based on this latest data set from the province's website, the CSWM currently is, again, roughly in the middle of the pack here at 518 kilograms per person per year, compared to the BC average of 499 kilograms per person per year. Next slide. This is just to provide a bit more of a granular view of the waste generation within our region dating back to 1990, showing the historical trend and the current status of waste disposal, which is both to use to inform and guide efforts as we look to reduce the amount of waste that we actually create within our region. That red line shown on the graph is the provincial waste disposal target of 330 or 350, which is again intended to provide a long-term goal of lowering the municipal solid waste disposal across BC. So as you can see, in the past 13 years, the CSWM service has been roughly averaging about 600 kilograms per person per year. And again, this is linked to generally to higher, stronger economic activities, but we do need to take concerted effort to meet that 350 target. Next slide. All of this to say, again, to sum this all up, the primary goal here is to really reduce the amount of waste that we produce in the region. Having an in-region landfill disposal option is paramount in ensuring the security of our waste disposal within the region here. Our regional landfill here is a finite, very valuable resource, and it's a huge asset to our community. And our service here places a great value on extending the life of that landfill. So the amount of waste that's generated per person, the disposal rate that we talked about earlier, is expected to decrease with the implementation of diversion programs throughout the CSWM service area, aimed at decreasing the amount of waste that's actually coming to the landfill and being buried within the landfill. By diverting this material, we'll be able to increase the life of that landfill. And this is going to be done most notably through the introduction of the Regional Organics Program in 2023. So with the expansion of the curbside collection food scrap program, which is currently, again, already in place for the town of Comox and the village of Cumberland, this is going to be extended to the residents of Courtenay and Campbell River in 2023. So the expectation is that the CSWM diversion rate will increase and reducing the amount of waste that's actually going to the landfill, as well as the associated landfill greenhouse gas emissions that's associated with the disposal of, the anaerobic digestion of the material that's being buried in the landfill. So the goal of this eventually is to accept food waste from additional residents, to expand this to multifamily and possibly businesses later on down the road to further reduce that diversion rate within the CSWMs. So after organics, the construction and demolition waste is the second largest contributor to the buried waste within the CSWM landfills, and most of which is usually recyclable or reusable, averaging about 11,000 tons a year. As you know, there's better places for that material, the metal, the clean wood, concrete, and we definitely don't want that filling up our landfills. So we're going to be working closely and actively with our municipal partners and industry stakeholders towards reducing this amount of material that's going to be, that's actually going to be coming into the landfill. Next slide. The CSWM service is responsible for a number of services beyond just the landfilling component. Sorry, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, this again, just to illustrate the true cost of waste disposal here in the region using 2022 figures. The dollar value, often the tip fee of the $145 that's coming into effect in 2023, the $145 cost per ton for disposal of solid waste, and the $5 million in tax requisition is usually referenced a lot as the cost of landfilling. But in reality, our service is much more than just the landfilling operation. Jesse and his operations team handles much more than that. In fact, we have the operation and maintenance and annual compliance requirements for all of our landfills, including the closure costs and the environmental liability of a lot of the historical landfills that we operate as well. There's also costs associated with the various diversion programs, including drywall, wood waste, the Recycle BC depots, and the household hazardous waste program that we operate. There's also, it pays for the unified transportation for all the communities with that operate transfer stations. Again, there's a lot of other costs that's built into the overall disposal costs. So this is just simply just illustrate the number that actually amount to what we actually call, the amount of money that actually goes into the waste disposal of the waste within our region. The next slide didn't turn out properly, but it was to cover the capital projects that are coming down the pipeline. The key projects that are on the horizon for the next decade is the closure of the Tassus, Sabalas, and Gold River landfills, and then also the construction of the transfer stations in this place. We are closing out on a very capital intensive year. Cole Makinson and our engineering analyst, Adam, and as well as our co-op student, Amy, they've been instrumental in pushing forward 3 capital projects that will be presented in the next agenda item. But the items that are coming down the pipeline are the closure of those facilities. But given the remaining available airspace in those landfills and the projected work that was done back in 2014, we work to ensure that the extended timelines will not negatively impact environmental or human health. So the closure of those remote landfills and the construction and upgrades of the transfer stations will be reflected as part of the new solid waste management plan that's forthcoming. And the revised timeline is to also allow for the proper consultation with the community to ensure that the new facilities will meet the needs of the community, and also allow for sufficient time to conduct a proper consultation with the First Nations as part of the siting of the new facilities. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin DeVille. He's our manager of financial planning, and he'll go through the financial planning and reporting process for the CSWM.
Thank you very much, Vivian, and through the chair, good morning, directors. So yes, I'm here today just to give you a brief overview of the financial planning process, and certainly what you can expect over the next few months as we kind of roll the financial plan out to all of you. So as it was noted, the Comox Valley Regional District Financial Services staff provide support financial administration and financial planning support, not only to the Comox Valley Regional District, but also to this board through the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service. We also do provide that similar support to the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District and also to the North Island 911 Corporation. With respect to financial planning, the annual financial planning process is guided by a board-approved financial planning policy specifically for the Regional Solid Waste Service. That financial plan really kind of provides the guiding principles as to how we undertake the annual financial planning process, and really kind of looks at those kind of key principles and outlines kind of the timing and nature of the process. Much of what Vivian had spoke to previously around the work that's been done by her and her staff, and certainly the upcoming solid waste management plan, will continue to really guide and influence what that financial plan ultimately becomes. The financial planning policy is provided to the directors at the start of every financial planning process. So you will expect to see that when we bring forward the proposed budget to you early in the new year. And really, to give you a sense, I mean, our internal process really kind of kicks off in earnest in September, and we use, the several months that follow to really work closely with Vivian and her team to kind of fully develop the operational and capital planning over the next 5 to 10 years for this service. And so when we bring that forward to you for your deliberation and consideration, there's certainly a lot of work that goes into kind of pulling all of those pieces together. So what you can expect going forward is that coming up on January 19th, we are scheduled to bring forward what's called the proposed financial plan to this board for your consideration and deliberation. Based on those discussions that take place at that time, we then kind of, take those away. We will fine tune the financial plan. At that stage, we hopefully have some good senses on kind of where things for the previous fiscal year are going to end up by way of project carry forwards, surpluses, and those kinds of things. And then those get incorporated into our recommended financial plan. And that recommended financial plan is slated to be presented to this board on February 23rd. As I'm sure you're all aware, by legislation, we are required to submit a full annual financial planning bylaw by no later than March 31st. So our intent is to certainly have this board endorse the financial plan by no later than early March. And as Russell certainly alluded to, the CSWM board is the governing body that is responsible for approving that financial plan for this particular service. We then take that and we incorporate that into the Comox Valley Regional District annual financial budget bylaw. But literally what's decided here is what ultimately makes its way into that financial plan for this service. Subsequent to that, we're then moving into looking at preparing the financial reporting for the previous fiscal year. And that financial planning, as you can see on the slide there, has to be presented and submitted to the ministry no later than May the 15th. And that includes the audited financial statements, in this case for the Comox Valley Regional District, which will include the reporting out on the CSWM service budgets and actuals. And that is all I have at this stage. So like I said, the 2022-2026 financial plan is certainly posted on the website and is available for everyone. If any directors wish to receive a copy of that directly, please reach out to myself and we can get that out to you. And then I would say, please look forward to seeing the 23-27 financial plan from us in early January.
Great, thanks, Kevin. I see there's a question from Director Green.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through the chair and the CAO to staff. My question is concerning the landfill closure reserves. A lot of people may not know that we have to put so much away for post-liability closure. More like an insurance policy that in case something goes wrong from 30 years after the closure of that landfill. So I noticed that the whole liability over a period of time is going to be $26,240,344. Is that correct? First of all, so that's when we close the last landfill in Zabalas or whatever, right? That's the culmination of all the closures together.
Yeah, so the closure and post-closure liability is a calculation we do annually, and that is based on what we anticipate that we are going to be requiring to outlay by way of capital works to physically close landfills. And then it also does include those anticipated costs associated with the ongoing monitoring and just post-closure requirements over the next 30 years.
And we have to actually have that money in the bank. We can't, there's no insurance policy that would cover it.
Insurance, likely not. So
No.
yes, what we do is we certainly look at at what those costs are. I mean, we don't certainly have all 26 million sitting in that closure reserve, of course. It is something we will be continuing to look at certainly over the next little bit, especially as we move more into what they call asset retirement obligations for all of our services. And we will be certainly looking at and bringing back recommendations to the board as to what level we feel is prudent into that reserve so that we can make sure we're covering off those costs. Because we build, as I mentioned, the capital components of that into our capital plan, but then of course any of the post-closure monitoring, et cetera, that's obviously operational costs, and we build that into a sub-function of this particular service annually.
Well, not a very good return on investment, in other words, but overall, yeah. So that it's pretty sobering to think about it. But my question is, do those funds eventually get returned, or we can put them into operations or whatever at the end of the 30-year period? Do we get a release from the province or something from the ministry, or you know how that works?
Do you want to answer that? I'm not sure.
Hello. The post-closure liability fund, it encompasses the regular monitoring operations and the reporting requirements as stipulated out in our under our operational certificate and closure plans. So these are activities that are undertaken to ensure to provide the ministry that assurance that we are doing the requirement to make sure that we're doing what we need to under our plan in order to close it. So it's money that's actually spent to provide that service. So it's not necessarily a pot of money at the end of the closure period after that 30 years that gets returned back to us.
If I can just add quickly to that, I will say that as with all regional district services, any funds that are raised for the solid waste service will stay with the solid waste service. Right. So Vivian's correct that the funds would, in this case, would be used for the closure and post-closure monitoring activities. If there are funds left over, then they would stay with the solid waste service and be used for other priorities and purposes within this service.
So no strategic planning session in Maui this year.
No, sir. I think then I have a couple of slides to provide, and so good morning, directors. My name is James Warren. I'm Deputy Chief Administrative Officer at the Comox Valley Regional District. And I think Director Wells might have a question.
Yeah, it looks like there's a quick question. Director Wells.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that's happened over the years is we've seen some of the smaller little recycle depots that were kind of throughout the community be closed down. And I believe it's because of the high contamination rates in there. But I've heard that there may be a staffed one being opened or may have been opened. I just wondered if, and I think it might be north of us here. I just wondered if there's any plans on staff.
Yeah, that's correct. Throughout the last while, we have under the previous board, there was direction to close out a number of the CSWM depots, which, as you pointed out, are generally plagued with high levels of contamination. So We've closed out all of them with the exception of two, one of which is on Quadra Island. That is in the process of being transitioned to a full-on recycle BC depot, and we're trying to include a complement of other product stewardship programs in its place, and we're going to be aiming to for the opening of that in January. We are also looking, we currently still have one in the Oyster River, the old Oyster River Fire Hall. So that's the only outstanding, one of the legacy depots. And we're working towards kind of getting it up to the Quadra Island depot standards, one that's properly fenced, staffed to ensure that we don't have illegal dumping happening, so that we can also properly manage the materials that come in to ensure that what's recyclable stays recyclable, and to strive to work towards an actual Recycle BC approved depot to ensure that that cost is actually covered by the stewardship programs.
Excellent. Really appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay, and also a question from Director Kerr.
Thank you. Just thinking back to a few slides ago when all of the different communities were listed, Nanaimo was at the top, we were in the middle. You know, in medicine, we have a term called positive deviance analysis. It's looking at the positive deviance, those that are doing exceptionally well and learning from them. So rather than thinking about, you know, why did a surgery go poorly, let's talk about what went well and the surgeries that went right. So as I look at the, you know, communities that are outperforming us, Nanaimo and others, have we looked into what they're doing well, what we can beg, borrow, and steal from them, and how we can incorporate those excellent strategies into our work going forward?
Vivian, did you want to take that? Just get your light on.
Thank you for the question. That's a fantastic question, and it is something that we definitely the solid waste community, we're a fairly close-knit community. I actually came from the regional district of Nanaimo, and they are very much a leader in solid waste management. As you can see, they were very much at the top of that list. And they're, as part of their recently approved solid waste management plan, there are some very notable regulations that they're working through, including one of which is the mandatory source separation bylaw that they're working through with under the ministry, which will require the separation of waste across all sectors, including industrial, commercial, and institutional sources. So far, the only jurisdiction that we have under the municipality is under the residential sector. So that would require the all of the sectors that we talked about to actually have the mandated 3 streams. That's going to be a big game changer in terms of how we manage waste. As part of the AVICC, there's a special solid waste group that we, again, generally get together to make sure that we are learning from each other, understanding best practices. Yeah, to your point, like we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We are definitely in close contact, and wherever we can leverage those learnings, we do.
Director Arbor, you had your light on a minute ago. Are you still interested? Okay, let me just get you live.
No, thanks. I'm glad Vivian talked about that. She came from Nanaimo, because I was going to say, well, we stole her from the Nanaimo Regional District. But beyond that, I think a big place where change happens is actually at boards like this. And we're just in the midst of doing the solid waste management plan, and it's up to this board to decide how ambitious we want to be towards moving towards zero waste in the next 10 years, and being conscious that that usually requires investment in different types of directions. So I would push it back on us to try to be ambitious if we so wish to be in the next year. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Director Arbor, and Director McCollum.
Thanks. Yeah, I wasn't sure if we're doing questions now or later, so I'll jump in with ones I jotted down during Vivian's presentation. There was a slide about disposal rates and the rates over a long period of time. I think you said 13 years. And I was curious about the numbers from before 2007, because they were lower and consistent, and then there was a jump up and then a steady decline. And I'm just wondering if we understand why what was the reason for the jump and why it was so consistent before that? And just if there's any insights into maybe it was a change in how we collected the data, or did it really change that significantly? And I think it was 2007, maybe. Yeah, or 2006, it looks like.
It's a great question. Disposal rates, it's not an exact science, but again, it's tied to population growth. It's also linked to economic activities. During that time, I believe there was quite a strong housing demand. That usually is tied to disposal rates as well. I don't have the exact pinpoint cause for that huge increase, but that's generally what it is. But we can definitely take a look into that and provide a bit more fulsome answer.
Thanks. Yeah, I would be interested to know, because we're almost back down to where we were, you know, was that 17 years ago? And then I had another question as well. It was on a slide, maybe it was the one after this, about just the cost per ton and the different factors that play into that. And I had two questions on that one. One was that there's a $17 per ton in rural areas that contribute. And I'm wondering, does the service bear the costs across the areas, or is that an additional cost for remote communities? Or yeah, like how is that $17 made up, or is that just an average?
It's a bit of an average. When we're working towards fine-tuning the reporting out of this, we're looking as part of our 2023 work plan. One of the things that the key goals for us is to be able to really tie our key performance indicators back to the costs, so that we have a clear understanding of our costs, so that we can also provide that level of transparency. But to your question about the $17 for remote communities, this is the operational contracts that we have with our contractors, whether it be the village of Tassus, Sabalis, in the operation of those depots. That's what those operations, that's what it costs to operate them, the day-to-day operation. So that's built into that $276. That's not an additional cost. This is kind of what all feeds into to that cost per ton calculation.
Yes, that makes sense. And then that kind of answers part of my other question, because the landfilling is quite a bit less than the organics and recycling, but that's just operational. That doesn't take into account capital costs. Is that right?
It does take into all of that feeds into the $107. That's inclusive of the 2022 contributions in the building out of the regional organics. The landfilling cost includes the construction of cell 2. So it's all inclusive in that $276 per ton for 2022.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that clarity.
Okay, great, thanks. And Director Moran, you had a question.
Great, thank you, Chair. The floodgates have opened now. We've woken up, I guess. I was interested in the slide that had the projections for, excuse me, the organics, the increase in diversion there. And I just was thinking about the construction and demolition waste, whether we have, I know we've started that process of outreach and education, but do we have any ideas of what those projections might be in terms of, how much we can keep, how positive those numbers can get, and also whether we'll be kind of looking at that process further in the solid waste management plan to flesh that out?
Yeah, definitely. That's to answer your first question. We don't have a pretty graphic like this one for the construction demolition waste, but based on our current disposal, we're averaging about 65,000 tons per year, 11,000 of which is construction and demolition waste. While not all of that is recyclable or divertible, but things like wood, the clean wood, metals, concrete, those are definitely things that we can pull out of that waste stream, and we're going to be working closely with our municipal partners. They're the ones that hold the, in addition to the CVRD for the rural areas, our municipal partners are the ones that hold the authority on building permits and things like that. So we'll be working with them closely as part of the solid waste management plan to really undertake that effort to see what opportunities there are, incentives or otherwise, through bylaws and other tools that are at their disposal to start to require the requirement to segregate that waste as much as we can. And then that will eventually lead to full-on bans at the landfill. But we first of all need to make sure that we have the policies in place, and also encouraging that business of diversion within our community so that there is an outlet for that material before we start taking that heavy-handed approach.
Yeah, and I realize obviously organics is looming, and it's easy to see those projections because it's coming up. But I think that as part of this, those numbers, you know, they say a lot, they show a lot. They're, you know, easy to digest. So thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. And we'll just continue to take questions as we go along. I probably should have specified that at the beginning. And we'll go back to the presentation, and probably at the end of this presentation, we'll take a short break. So I'll pass it back to the Deputy CAO.
Thank you, Chair Cole Hamilton. So we've just got a couple of slides left here on governance and decision making. Jake Martins, who is our General Manager of Corporate Services, would normally present most of this information, but he's away today. You'll get a chance to meet him at subsequent meetings. As Russell and Vivian indicated on the presentation of the history of the regional district, it was in 2008 that the Comox Strathcona Regional District was split. The provincial government, as Russell said, unilaterally made the decision to split that regional district. And for the most part, the services that the new regional districts, the Comox Valley and the Strathcona regional districts, for the most part, those regional districts delivered the services that fell within their boundaries. So services like land use planning, recreation facilities, that kind of thing. But there were three services that through the split bridged the Oyster River, or covered the Oyster River, and had application in both regional districts. And in the letters patent from 2008, the Comox Valley Regional District was assigned responsibility for the three services, being the Black Creek Oyster Bay Water, Black Creek Oyster Bay Fire, and then the Comox Strathcona Waste Management. And so as a result, when waste management decisions and discussions are held, the two sets of directors for the regional districts come together in an expanded regional district board table. So that's why we have today the 23 directors from both regional districts coming together to make decisions and have discussion on solid waste topics. As a result of all that, the policy and the procedures that come out of, or that apply to the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board are technically documents of the CVRD, but we want to make sure that they have relevance and are built by the CSWM. That is why, as Russell mentioned, you'll see the referral process for many of the policies and procedures that would have application to the regional district. One just recently that is on its way for referral to this board is related to a code of conduct, changes around the code of conduct. And so you'll see that at a subsequent board meeting, a referral for discussion here. On this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the board procedure bylaw, and then I'll turn it over to Lisa Dennis, our manager of legislative services, to talk about voting and agendas and board correspondence. So bylaw number 1 is your board procedure bylaw. It describes the rules of order that the board follows and various different procedures that the board would follow through its decision making. It is available on the CSWM website. I would strongly recommend you have a read of it, because it is informative in terms of various processes. We can get into any of those if you want, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of the highlights here. First one being Robert doesn't rule. A lot of you probably have reference or have an awareness of Robert's Rules of Order. Those are parliamentary procedures that a lot of different jurisdictions will rely on. Our board bylaw, our board procedure bylaw, doesn't specifically reference Robert's Rules of Order the way other procedures bylaws might. Instead, we take a lot of the principles and practices that are noted in Robert's Rules of Order and we have them embedded in the bylaw, but we don't specifically reference the Roberts rules. Reason for that is Roberts Rules of Order is hundreds of pages long, and there are many different subsections, and we can sometimes get lost in procedural, just it can be a bit of a quagmire when we're looking at different procedures and different specifics. So instead, when there is something that happens at the board table that's not covered by our procedure bylaw, the procedure bylaw instructs the chair of the meeting and the corporate officer to determine what is the concern or the issue and craft a path forward, come back to the board, present that path forward, and the board can agree on that or not. Really, the board meetings are your meetings, and the procedure bylaw is there to help guide you. So just the point being that Robert's Rules of Order doesn't specifically apply, but we do apply a lot of those principles. Secondly, points of order. There's a couple of really I think well-described sections of the bylaw that talk about points of order. So you'll often hear a phrase at a meeting, point of order. I challenge the chair, those kinds of things. And that's where a member of the board meeting may feel like something in the procedure bylaw is being violated, or the agenda is not being followed, or a director is speaking out of turn. There is specific language in the procedure bylaw around points of order. So I would encourage you to, if you can, take a look at the language in that procedure bylaw to understand what those points of order cover. With respect to delegations, the board meetings are really the opportunity for members of the public and organizations to come to the board to speak about their interests, speak about their priorities and projects. And so as staff, we really encourage members of the public to do that, to come and apply to be a delegation, and we can schedule them onto your board meetings. I believe there's a limit of 3 delegations per meeting. Any topics that relate to solid waste and would relate to the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service would certainly come to this board meeting. We also typically try to follow the approach where decisions about a delegation would not be made in the moment of the board meeting. So a delegation will often present their perspective, their point of view, ask for some action for the board to take on the matter. And it can be tempting sometimes to align with that particular point of view, but often there's multiple sides to a story. And so staff, and I think the board in the past has preferred that maybe a report come back to the board, or there be some investigation into whatever the topic is, and some research to provide more context around whatever the topic is. And so often when there's a delegation, there may be a subsequent direction to staff or motion to staff to undertake research and come back to a subsequent meeting with a report on the request or the situation. Motions are how the board makes decisions. So you'll see often in our agendas, there's a staff report for receipt, and there's a recommendation contained in that staff report, and that recommendation is on the agenda. When a motion is put forward by a member of the board and seconded, there's a couple of things the board can do with that. You can accept the motion as it is. You can defeat the motion when the chair calls the question on the motion. You can make an amendment to that motion. You can refer the matter, you can defer the matter. So there's a few different things that you can do with motions that are put forward. Again, the meeting is your meeting, and it's how you conduct it. The chair will do their best to be able to follow the rules of order and procedure, but just knowing that there's options you can have with motions that are put onto the table. Notices of motion. This is another maybe unique piece of the procedure bylaw that this board follows. There is no notice of motion per se in our procedure bylaw. Oftentimes you'll hear directors referring to a notice of motion, and they want to inform the board that they're going to bring forward something at the next meeting. So they'll provide a notice of motion that they will have a letter of support for some initiative or asking staff to undertake some work. And it's a new topic. What the procedure bylaw does afford or does allow for is that where directors have the intent of bringing something forward, we would ask that you put it onto your letterhead. We can work with you to craft a resolution or provide some background information and put forward a request on your letterhead that would then be put on the agenda itself at the next meeting. It provides full awareness by all members about what's on the agenda, what the topic is, and allows you to come prepared for the meeting. And then lastly, meeting minutes. We don't take verbatim minutes at our meetings, so we don't record the dialogue and the presentation while the meetings are live streamed and they're provided on YouTube. The minutes themselves are simply the resolutions that are put forward, whether they're approved or defeated. That is recorded, and then also from time to time there may have to be a record of the vote itself. So if there's a resolution or a motion that is possibly contentious and is not clearly in favor or clearly defeated, then we may ask the chair to walk through the list of attendees and asking in favor or opposed, and we'll record on a sheet whether you're in favor or opposed, and then that record would form part of the minutes as well. Lastly, and I think this is consistent with all local governments, but when voting on motions, a director who's attending a meeting cannot abstain from a vote. If you're in the meeting, you must vote in favor or against. And if you don't indicate which way you're voting, you're deemed to be voting in favor. So there's no abstaining. That's sometimes another misnomer that happens at local government. So on that, happy to take any questions. Or Lisa, I think you were going to cover off the last couple of bullets on voting and such. Thanks.
Thanks, James. I'm Lisa Dennis, Manager of Legislative Services. So in regards to voting, all regional district voting follows provincial legislative requirements. So population determines the number of directors and the weighted votes that each jurisdiction is entitled to. In our case, every municipality and electoral area is designated one vote for every 1,500 in population. So we just recently had the minister certify the new census and population results. And so our weighted voting changed slightly for the CVRD and for the SRD as well. And there's a slide coming up where you can see that weighted voting distribution. So we have three different types of voting. So one is for corporate matters, and that's under Section 208 of the Local Government Act. We have financial contractual matters voted under Section 210, and that's a weighted vote. And for the most kind of common type of vote that you'll see at this board is the service related matters. And this is under Section 209 of the Local Government Act, and this is a weighted vote as well. So because most of the decisions of this board concern the solid waste service, that would mean that all of the directors are participants. So if it's a weighted vote, it would be 209, all directors participating, weighted vote. Maybe I'll just show you that slide while I'm mentioning it. So, and as James had mentioned, if there's a vote on a motion and the chair calls for any opposed and we see a bunch of hands go up online or in the room, we will do a polled vote, which is where the chair will read through each director individually so we can accurately record their vote. So for agenda distribution, all of the agendas are distributed electronically. All of the open agendas are posted to our public websites. We've got a CVRD website and a solid waste website. It'll be posted to both. So all of the in-camera and confidential material will be posted to a secure website, and that's what your security certificate is for. So anyone hopefully who's here today can have their security certificate installed today. And for everybody online, we'll be in touch probably today and tomorrow and set it up over Zoom so we can do that remotely for you. So we have to distribute agendas 24 hours before the meeting. We obviously try to do a lot better than that. So usually a meeting agenda will be distributed on a Friday for the following Thursday meeting. So yeah, again, the digital certificate that you'll receive shortly will give you access to the in-camera information. It also gives you information to board correspondence. So any correspondence that's directed to the Solid Waste Board will be posted on this secure site as well. And so that brings me to the last item. Oh, got a question here. From Director Wally.
I was actually just going to text James. It just dawned on me as we're talking about all these procedural things. I haven't taken an oath, and so I'm not sure if that matters or
not. As an alternate director to the CVRD, then we will want you to take an oath with the CVRD. That said, you have taken an oath with your municipality, and in some cases that would apply across the board. But we would follow up with those alternate directors.
Yeah, I trust myself. It just dawned on me that might be an issue.
I think that may be the case for a couple of the other alternates as well. So thank you.
Director Wally.
Director Wally, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I believe I heard that on a typical vote where the vast majority is in favor of an issue, that the opposed are not recorded. So is it possible to ask that our opposition be recorded?
Yeah, through the chair to Director Wally, and that is actually currently in our procedure bylaw to record dissenting vote, so that's already our procedure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions, or otherwise we'll just pass it back to Lisa.
Okay, yeah, so just the last item is board correspondence. So the correspondence that is addressed to the board is posted to the director's correspondence site. So anything that's service related correspondence with a request is directed to the appropriate board or committee meeting. And any correspondence that directors see on the website, if you want to follow up with some kind of requested action, if you want to bring it to the board, then please contact staff and we can help you prepare something on your letterhead with the correspondence and maybe possibly a requested action. So yeah, again, we're here to assist in all of those ways. Thank you.
All right, I think that's the last slide, and I believe that our CEO Dyson wanted to just make a few comments to wrap up, and then we'll talk about taking a break.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, directors, for your questions and consideration of the information we provide. I just wanted to reach out to you and say that if you do have any questions at all, please contact me. With the assistance of staff, we'll get the information for you in a timely manner. This service is a complex service. We bring forward a lot of reports with a ton of pages and a lot of information. What we do to help you is provide reports that provide a succinct executive summary that hopefully summarizes the issues and the rationale behind our recommendations. I endeavor with Vivian and her support of her staff to ensure that our presentations to you and those of consultants that come forward are short, succinct, and provide the essential information, and that we're here to follow up and provide the information necessary on these sometimes complex questions. And that's on the basis of feedback I received from previous boards. I just also want to say that to emphasize what James said, if you have an issue that you want to bring forward, you want the board to consider some action, please contact us. We are here to help present that on your letterhead in a report on the agenda for consideration. We're there to support you. When you receive your agendas, if you think something is missing or you need more information, don't hesitate to contact me in advance of the meeting, and I will endeavor to ensure that information is available in a timely manner for the board or the agenda. And in that way, rather than getting caught up with a matter that needs more information, there would be subsequent delays if it's waited until it's at the meeting. So whenever you see something that seems in need of more information or otherwise on the agenda, please do contact me in advance and we'll endeavor to get it to you and the rest of the board at that meeting rather than delaying. And with that, if there's any final questions, we're here for you. Otherwise, we look forward to serving you, the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board, which is what is a very exciting service. And I imagine all of you campaigned on the desire to come forward and manage solid waste in your communities. So welcome aboard.
Thanks very much, CIO. So we've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes. So I think we'll take a break. And given that we only have one washroom at this particular moment, we'll take a 10-minute break. So we'll come back at just after quarter after. Okay, thanks. We'll see you then. CEO Mike. Sit up on. And that's now fancy. You could. So directors, we're just gonna come back in about 1 minute. All right, directors, if you can just take your seats, please, and we're just gonna get back to the meeting. And I realized we actually didn't have a vote on receipt of the overview, so we'll just do that just to tie that up. Can I get a motion for, sorry. Actually, no, we already have the motion, we just need the vote. Anyone opposed to receipt?
Call the question.
Was that actually a hand over there? Okay. All right, so and now we'll move on to the next item, which is capital project updates. If someone's put forward a motion for receipt.
Second.
Okay, Arbor and Wells again, and I'll pass that over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce Cole Mackinson, manager of CSW and Capital Projects, who will, I believe, walk through a PowerPoint presentation on this.
Yeah.
Cole?
Perfect, thank you. Just let Lisa bring up the.
Sorry, directors, we're just getting the PowerPoint onto the screen.
Looks like we're experiencing a little bit of technical problems with getting the presentation up. Cole, are you okay to start just with no net?
For sure, I get it, yeah.
Okay, and we'll get this up as soon as we can.
It is pretty visual, it's just a lot of pretty pictures of the work that we've been undertaking in 2022. And so we'll be starting at the compost facility. We'll see if Lisa can. There it is.
Okay, we've got it now. Thanks everyone for your patience.
It's like it won't work. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Can you jump to the, yeah. Okay, we'll start at the compost facility. So we awarded this contract back in 2021 with Napit Industries. and we've been under construction majority of this year. And this is the layout. This is Block J at the Comox Valley or Campbell River Waste Management Center, adjacent gravel extraction area. And so this was used for public consultation and a high-level overview. And we're using aerated compost membrane-covered technology. And we'll start. There's the primary compost facility, which is an enclosed building with gore compost covers. This helps trap any odors, any odor issues, and also a biofilter attached to this building. The process then flows into the secondary compost building for further composting also under gore covers and in a covered building. And then the compost is screened and placed in a storage building for further curing. Also on site, there's a lined stormwater pond for capturing any stormwater within the open courtyard. This is aerated and has a silt current for desedimentation, and then it's infiltrated into the stormwater management pond. The gore compost technology was chosen through a number of studies we've had the pilot project running at the Comox Valley landfill for a number of years, which has been successful. We had a number of studies within 2015, 2017, and 2019. There was board support to continue under this aerated static pile gore cover system, opposed to other technologies such as anaerobic digestion, which is more capital intensive and more operational maintenance intensive. And so we can jump to the next slide. Here's the overview of the Campbell River Waste Management Center. So on the left is the landfill, which we'll highlight later in this, which is being closed this year. And then on the right-hand side is Block J, which is the compost facility. So we can jump to the next slide. So this was a picture from in the summer. We can see the primary compost building, the biofilter on the right, then the material will flow to the secondary compost building, into the courtyard for screening, and then storage for customer pickup. There's a wildlife fence around the whole perimeter of the site to exclude any bears or any other animals. And we've kept all the trees on site from our ALC resolution for using this site for composting. So there's no further trees being cleared here. We jump to the next. So here's the primary compost building being erected, the secondary compost building, the trusses are going up and fabric as we speak. In the background is the biofilter. We can just jump. This is another shot of that. So the building on the bottom left of the screen, that's going to be the storage building, which is a covered area just for the curing of the compost prior to sale to the public. This is the biofilter. For the primary compost building, it's fully enclosed under a negative air system, and then wood chips will be placed on this, on the header piping, and that's for further odor reduction. So there's kind of 3 levels within the primary composting. It's a fully enclosed building, negative air. We use the gore covers, which also help reduce odor, and then any air extracted goes through the biofilter. And this is the stormwater collection pond. So the open courtyard is used for screening under the regulations for composting. That water needs to be treated prior to discharge. And so we aerate and clear any sediment out, and then we infiltrate it into our stormwater pond that's also used for the landfill. And then within all the buildings, there is leachate collection. So any water that's collected within the buildings for composting is put into holding tanks and then recirculated in the composting process. And then periodically it'd be treated like a septic tank that you pump it out for treatment. And then we'll go to the adjacent site. So this year we've been working on in the spring this year, Campbell River hit capacity at their landfill. And so under the Ministry of Environment requirements, we had to close this landfill. So there's a membrane cover that covers this whole landfill, and vertical gas extraction wells were drilled into this landfill. And so we can jump to the next slide. We've cut, this is about 90,000 square meters of landfill, and 31 vertical gas wells were placed in there. We've purchased a landfill gas flare for this site. With supply chain issues, there has been delays on that, but it's expected to come in early 2023 for commissioning. Then we can jump to the next slide. And so the landfill's been fully capped and topsoiled and hydroseeded for erosion control. And then we'll jump down to the Comox Valley Waste Management Center. We had 2 projects undergoing there. This is an overview of the site. On the bottom left is the organics transfer station. So now that Campbell River is fully closed and is acting as a transfer station, the waste is being hauled down to cell 2 or cell 1 and cell 2 here. And then we'll backhaul them with the empty trucks to the organic processing facility. And then also ongoing this summer was the construction of cell 2 and construction of a leachate pond 2. So we'll jump to the transfer station. And so we've used the natural bedrock on the west side of the property, allowed for a staged transfer station similar to the one up in Campbell River, where the walking floor can travel under for loading of the organics. Jump to the next slide. And so we've been constructing a 4-bay transfer station this summer. Jump. And here's the lower area where the walking floor will circle around on the empty backhauls. They'll transfer it back up to the Campbell River site for processing. So the building's cladded and finished. We're just completing the final mechanical electrical, expecting completion this December. There's kind of the overview of that building from that site. And then also this summer, we've been constructing cell 2 adjacent to cell 1. In our current OC or operating certificate, we're permitted for 3 cells on this site. And so the cell was excavation of about 500,000 cubes of material, plus another 70,000 cubes at the leachate pond 2. So we can jump to the next slide. Cell 1 had a volume of about 470,000 cubes. This is a cross section. Cell 2 has a little bit over 1 million cubes, and you can just see how the cells stage on top of each other, which gives that more volume for cell 2. And so we've been ongoing bulk excavation for this cell with Hazelwood this summer. And then we line this with a 60 mil HDPE lining. It's double lined in leachate areas, and then also and single lined on the cells. And then it's covered with about 300 mils of drain rock for leachate collection. And all leachate that hits the cell is then treated on site at our leachate treatment plant and then infiltrated into an infiltration gallery. So here's cell 2. We've it was a large project to complete in one season, so we've broken it across 2 years. We did the bulk excavation and lined about 45% of the cell, and we'll be able to start landfilling that over this winter. And then once better weather comes, we'll do the remaining 60% of the lining next year. And so you can see kind of the remaining lining work that'll happen in the spring, summer next year. And then as part of this project, now that we have cell 2 being open, it's twice the surface area for leachate containment. And it's also combined with atmospheric rivers that we've seen in the fall. We've needed more leachate capacity and storage. And this also aids the leachate treatment plant to run at more of a steady state for the summertime when we're hitting these droughts that you need to constantly feed the microbes growing in there. So we've constructed a large buffer pond that will act as an overflow. We can jump through. There's about 70,000 cubes for excavation on this pond. This is just this staging of excavation. And you can jump to the next. And this is the final pond. And in the next summer, we'll be putting a pond cover, floating cover system on this pond to prevent stormwater entering this pond and contributing to leachate that we have to treat. So the floating cover captures all the stormwater and then we infiltrate it just into the ground. And I think that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to open things up for questions, and I see Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, and it's pretty awesome actually to to see some of the new pictures of the organics facility. It's in the short 4 years. Last time we started with site identification and some great debates at this board about where it was going to be, and to see it about to go into action in 2023 is great. It's going to knock down our methane emissions and create a product that's usable for people, making a real difference to our diversion rate. So wonderful. My question is around what we're currently doing at the Cumberland landfill. And I mean, if I recall, each of our cells has an average lifespan of about 8-10 years or something like that. So beyond cell 2 and cell 3, when you talked about, so that, cell 2 and cell 3 would take us 16 years from now. But beyond that, when you said we have permit and room on the site for cell 2 and cell 3, did you mean the site or the property? And if not, do we have room for cell 4, 5, 6 on the property beyond the 16 years?
Yes, thanks. Yes, so we're permitted cell 1, cell 2, and cell 3 is adjacent. There is a master plan. I think that was part of one of the staff reports that has outlines of space on the current site, that 4, 5, and 6, but it's not permitted yet. So in the next few years, that's the process.
Okay, and I see a question by Director McCollum.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I always like seeing the updates on our various capital projects. We don't usually visit the site, so it's nice to see what's been happening. My question is around organics. It's great to see the progress on it, and I certainly had a lot of questions around when organics is coming to the city of Courtenay over the election period. So it's great to see that we're almost there. And something that occurred to me recently that we haven't really discussed at this board, as far as I know, although I wasn't at this board when we initiated the project, so it's possible it's come up and I just wasn't part of the conversation. But it's my understanding that if we have great organics diversion and we're no longer putting that into our landfill, that's going to limit the amount of methane that is coming out of our landfill site, which makes me wonder how much methane is expected to be produced at the organics facility, and if there is any means or need to capture any of that methane, or what the impact of that would be.
Yeah, so with aerobic composting, we don't produce methane. It's the anaerobic digestion that in a landfill that starts producing methane. So so we're constantly aerating our compost, so there's no methane produced. And then it's also accounted for in the Fortis agreement and feasibility that they've accounted for looking at reductions of organics into our landfill to account for what their expected flow rates are.
Okay, great. Thanks for that answer.
And Director Mawini. Gotcha.
Thank you. I really liked seeing the pictures. After reading the report, it was great to get a visual. That was awesome. I have two quick questions. One of them, I'm curious, you mentioned there was going to be a lot of compost, which is awesome. And I heard the word sold, and I'm curious what the plan for finished compost is. And I'm also curious about the ponds. Some of them look pretty big. And are there thoughts or concerns about migrating waterfowl landing on them? And would that be potentially negative to their health? Thanks.
Perfect. Yes, for the compost, we've got a number of programs. We're doing the pilot project at Comox Valley, and we also do biosolids with the CBRD composting, and it's just a sale. So we'll look at it further, but it'll probably be open to public or commercial depending on availability and tonnage. But we don't expect anything immediately. It'll have to go through the composting process and curing, and then we'll probably have something maybe by the summer or fall. But that'll be a revenue stream to offset operational costs. For the ponds, we do have a smaller pond on site at the Comox Valley landfill. We haven't noticed any waterfowl going into it. We monitored that. It's fully fenced. It's not a great landing area with the Comox Lake adjacent to it. And then the new pond is larger, but we are doing a floating cover system, so it's fully covered, and you can't actually access the leachate. It's a sealed system, and then we're diverting any rainwater that hits that, and then we pump that out. So there wouldn't be any risk.
Great. And CEO Dyson, you had your hand up.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add to the answer that Cole provided that Jesse and Mike and his team at the landfill have a contractor that does bird control that is absolutely phenomenal in their results. And I look forward to just showcasing the absence of wildlife or bird life at the landfill when we do the tour. It's really been very good for us for many different reasons, and certainly protecting the birds and such themselves. So you'll see that when you see the landfill.
Great, thank you, Chair. CAO, I don't see any further questions, so we'll just vote on receipt. Anyone opposed? Okay, and that passes. And so the next item is for receipt is the management report. If someone wants to move that. Okay, that's Grieve and Kerr, I believe. No, Grieve and Wells. Okay, Wells is still on it.
Sure, and I can just advise the directors, we don't typically have a presentation for CSW management reports. This is a collection of resolutions that the board has passed over the past number of months and that, and you can see that there is an action column to identify what action has been taken. And if there's any questions that any of the board members have on any of these topics, we'll be able to address those questions.
Okay, I don't see any questions, but I do have one myself, actually. It's on item 1, which is the GHG reduction plan. And it says work to commence in 2023. I was wondering if this get any more sort of detailed sense of when we can anticipate seeing that report.
I think Vivian would be able to respond to that.
Thank you so much for the question. As you can tell, based on the amount of work that's been done, it's been a pretty capital intensive year that we have so far. So in terms of capacity, we are starting to work on developing the scope so that we can get it out to procurement early in the new year so that we can get started. There are some funds available within the 2022 financial plan that we can hope to earmark towards this study with more funds possibly to be allocated as part of the 2023 financial plan in order to support this study. But based on the procurement timing to make sure that we have the full inventory of the GHG emissions, we're looking to be able to have a report kind of mid next year. Timing wise, it does work fairly well in terms of some of the other initiatives that we have underway. So as part of the solid waste management plan as well, it is one of greenhouse gas reduction, emission reduction is definitely one of the technical studies that we have identified. That's something that we're likely going to obviously pursue as part of the solid waste management planning process. So that report will serve to inform the advisory and the board as well. And also the federal government is currently undertaking a review of the existing regulatory approaches and currently seeking input for the proposed objectives of the regulations under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act to reduce methane emissions. So some of that work will be incorporated and to inform the outcome of that report as well. So we're hoping to have something more or less within next year.
So you were saying the initial report then would be sometime sort of middle of 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and there'll be a subsequent report later on in the year, was that also what you're saying?
No, so this is the initial work that's to undertake the inventory of the greenhouse gas. So that's the initial report that we're looking to bring forward. But we will have to go out to public procurement for that work.
All right, okay, appreciate that, thanks. Any other questions from other directors? Okay, then I guess we'll take a vote on receipt. Anyone opposed? All right, and so the next item that we have is an addendum which was added yesterday, and so we have a recommendation. Does anyone want to move that? Okay, it's Arbor and second. So someone over here. Okay, Sullivan. Great. Okay. And anyone opposed to that? Okay, great. And so with that, we'll just, I guess, have a motion for receipt for the Arbor and McCollum, and I'll pass it over to staff to present the update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Sarah Willie will be presenting the staff report, and thanks to the board for accepting it as an addendum to this agenda. Sarah.
Thank you through the Deputy CEO to the Chair. Thank you, Vivian, for introducing me earlier. It's Sarah Willie, Manager of Planning and Policy Development for Solid Waste. So this report that we're bringing to you is for information only about the developments that we've made at the Campbell River Waste Management Center landfill. As a sort of background, I wanted to provide a little bit of information for some of the new directors on our landfill gas obligations and opportunities. So, generally, as mentioned, landfill gas is created from the decomposition of the biodegradable waste. So the organic stream is very important, of course, to remove, but there is also things like wood waste, yard waste, misplaced papers, anything else that's in there. The landfill gas will be created initially when the waste is decomposed, when it's disposed, and it'll be at highest in the early years, but it will continue to create gas for a number of years beyond that. Each year that the waste is placed, the gas becomes sort of compounding. So the volume of gas that's created will peak at the time of closure and just thereafter, and then will continue to decline after that sort of last bucket of waste has been placed. So as Cole mentioned in his presentation, the Campbell River landfill was closed earlier this spring. That was our last bucket of waste. And so the landfill gas volume created in that landfill will peak shortly and then will decline from thereafter. So we do have landfill gas wells installed and they'll be collecting the gas and flaring it. And that's part of our obligation under the landfill gas regulation in British Columbia. So both the landfill in Campbell River and also the Pigeon Lake and the engineered landfill that we have at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center all meet the threshold under that regulation to be required to collect, capture, and destroy the landfill gas. Above and beyond that regulatory requirement is the beneficial use of landfill gas. So that would be, using turbines to create electricity, converting the gas into renewable natural gas, using it to create heat, those sorts of opportunities. So we've been pursuing that opportunity for our regional landfill, knowing that we're going to be producing landfill gas and placing waste there for the years and decades to come. There's a lot of the economic opportunities there are stronger. For a facility like the Campbell River landfill, where we know we have declining gas volumes, the amount of waste, while seems significant to us, is actually, it's a smaller landfill on the scale of landfills. And so the opportunity for beneficial use was not previously understood to be positive based on the capital investments that would be required. But technology continues to change and opportunities continue to evolve. And so that's where we're at now. So prior to the recent developments, we didn't believe that a beneficial use project could happen there. We attended a conference last year, a renewable natural gas and biogas conference, and in speaking to some of the technology providers and project developers, felt that there could be an opportunity that worth exploring. So we did an expression of interest to the public. We invited some of those technology providers as well as off-takers. And we had 2 responses. Waga Energy was the successful proponent there. They're a company based out of France, but they've recently been developing projects in Canada. They have construction and I think even commissioning of projects in Quebec. They were successfully awarded the project in Victoria at the Capital Regional District landfill. So they'll be constructing the facility there and operating it for the Capital Regional District. And they are a company that came out of Air Liquide, which is a company we're familiar with, has a long history. So the technology they're using is based off of lessons learned there and cryogenic cooling of the gas in order to separate it. So they're a strong project partner for us to continue to look at opportunities with. We've moved forward with them in discussions with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and we've received pre-approval for an application under a strategic initiative to look at funding for a feasibility study to continue to look at this opportunity. So we're working forward with a memorandum of understanding with Waga Energy and completing that application with the FCM. And then, we'll wait until we have gas numbers from Campbell River. That's a significant hurdle we have to overcome, is actually capturing and measuring that gas. And that'll be fundamental to determining project viability. So still lots to look at here, but we wanted to update you on the progress there. Open to any questions.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Any questions for the directors? I see Director Arbor. Let me just get your microphone.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And I feel we're pretty lucky to actually have Sarah on staff. Are you still chair of the landfill gas for BC, or of all the people working on that?
Yeah, we have a working group in BC.
Yeah, that's great. And for the new members, BC kind of got ahead of the rest of Canada on landfill gas and through regulation without funding. And so the federal government is now putting a lot of money out for other provinces. So I'm glad that we found maybe a way to, through FCM, to maybe get some support for a project like this at our landfill. And if you need any other board members here, I think that our chair is going to be in Ottawa. So if there's a need to meet with anybody in the short term, just keep us in mind. We're heading there in December and maybe in February again. In regards to the specific company, because that's a novel element for the board. So I signed a staff report that it said that their project would be without pipelines. So does that mean that what we're looking at is a product that would just be trucked from the facility? And do we have any idea of the kind of end use that that company usually operates with, or what kind of, or is it too early days to discuss that?
So as part of their cryogenic process, they liquefy the gas. And so the area that they're looking to explore is, instead of reheating the gas and putting it into a pipeline, would be to put it into trucks and truck it. On the island here, there are liquefied natural gas users based out of Duke Point. So there's a storage facility in Chemainus that trucks up to Duke Point. And so there are transportation users there that are interested in that liquefied natural gas from a renewable source.
Yeah, and in terms of, will there be any exploration of local use? I know we had discussion around the future of, with Emterra and their fleets or anything like that. Could there be a consideration by WAGA of, if we can foster a kind of circular approach to the use of the product in the region, or would that be looked at or not?
Yeah, those are two separate fuels. So the infrastructure required for liquefied natural gas use is different than for compressed natural gas use. So typically the fleets of trucks are using compressed natural gas. The opportunity in Duke Point is actually marine based.
And Director McCollum.
Thanks. Yeah, those were great questions, Director Arbor. Some of mine have been answered, and just want to comment that I think this is some good news for the service, even to better understand what the feasibility is worth exploring. And if we get a result where we're able to sell some energy, all the better. I did read through an old report when we were considering this, I believe, for the Comox Valley landfill location, and there was a bit of a discussion around the feasibility of selling it or of using it to create electricity. And there was a note at the time that BC Hydro wasn't really a willing purchaser of that product. And I'm just wondering if that's still the case in the current landscape, or if that's changing.
Yeah, our understanding is their program isn't going to come back with the development of the Site C project. There's significantly more renewable electricity that's been developed by them. So they're not focused on small projects like this at this time.
Okay, that makes sense. I thought that might be the case, but I mean, things do change. Yeah, and then I just wanted to add my 2 cents around how we treat our renewable natural gas, and or how we conceive of it. And when it comes to providing it as a replacement for fossil fuel in a renewable environment, I think that's worthwhile. If we're using it as a justification to expand, by we, I mean like beyond this board, how we think about it in society as a whole. If it's a justification for expanding the use of the natural gas products, I do have concerns around that. I know that that is really how Fortis is pushing their utility service, is that it's a tool for adding gas to new homes and new subdivisions, is that it can be delivered with renewable, which really allows us to continue to develop two sources and burn gas rather than looking at cleaner methods. So I don't know much about for marine use. And if that was replacing a fracked product or, you know, an unrenewable product, then great. But if we're just using it as a means of expanding our gas resources, then I think we should, yeah, really think about that. But overall, I think it's good news and look forward to hearing more about what we learn. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, any further questions? All right, so that's just for receipt. So anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that carries. And I think it's just a termination and lunch at this point. Okay, anyone opposed? All right, nice to see you all. Thanks for the meeting today. Bye-bye.